5 on your ass, don't get stuck. My shit blasting up. Window tinted, can't get caught. My bitch bad.
Yeah. What's the deal, everybody, man? This is Ricky Montoya checking in, aka the fullest of all bears, and you are now tuned into I Think You're My Driver podcast. Man, take a look at us, bro. Take a look at how far we done come, man. Man, I done had a really good day, man. Let's just go ahead and get this out the way real quick. I had a great day. The weather is great out here. You know, the setup is looking nice. You know, we're making progress in life, bro. So go ahead and get the shit tuned in and stick with me, bro. So, of course, as always, today I bring you guys actually to episode 30, bro. Episode 30. And what's the title of today's episode, you ask? Today's episode is going to be called Who's That Knocking? So I want to go ahead and start this off with kind of a little bit of a hot topic that happened, I want to say, maybe a little bit under a month ago. We actually had a very interesting scenario that happened with us. And of course, for those of you who don't know, what am I talking about? I am talking about the whole Marvin Sapp situation. Now, reading into this now that we're like a month or so after the fact of what has happened, what it was and how it was masked out to be is that this was like a regular situation that was happening. But in all honesty, this is not as regular as you guys are really like painting this out to be. So what happened is that in this church, for those of you people who grew up going to church, you know, there's a lot of people who are willing to go whatever lengths, whatever routes, whatever bouts to get that payment, man. And for those of you who don't know, sometimes when you're going into some of these churches, you can kind of end up in almost the same similar situation, such as Big Worm. And I mean, let's be honest, bro. You know, a lot of people who are behind a lot of these things, some of these people don't really have the greatest intentions. I'm not saying anything bad about this gentleman, Marvin Sapp, because he has a great foot in history as far as gospel music. So shout out to Marvin Sapp. But also at the same time, it's like one of the things where I just really don't understand what can really make you go to the lengths of needing to like hold people hostage. Like people were trying to leave church, but they're trying to make sure that they, you know, met their goal, met their quota. You know what I'm saying? Like this is kind of like the same thing that you'll see around like, you know, the first of the month, the end of the month, when you see a lot of these police officers just out and about, just waiting to catch somebody. This is the same exact scenario, bro. But instead, we got a lot of church folks. A lot of these church folks are always ready to do whatever it takes to get that payment for the Lord. Am I right, bro? But I mean, you know, granted, who knows where a lot of these funds are going, especially with a lot of these independent places, so to say. But it's something to where, in my eyes, if we're really trying to benefit the church, are we really needing to go the lengths of holding people hostage and standing in front of the doors when people are just trying to leave to go home to their families, bro? Like, this shit was just ridiculous when I heard about it. And I really don't even want to read into the story whatsoever, like right now while I'm sitting with you guys. But it's just like something where I just really don't understand, what do we need to do to prevent something like this to happen again? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. I can completely understand, you know, like I say, we all got a quota to meet at the end of the month. At the end of the day, you know, we all have, you know, bills and stuff that we need to take care of. But are those bills really that hefty to where you have to stop people at the door? And what was kind of funny is that like my wife and I, we had a lot of discussions about this topic, so to say. And she actually had told me a story about how a church that she went to not exactly went the same lengths to make sure that people gave the payment, but kind of in a similar way. So, you know, for those of you who don't go to church, basically when you're going through this service, there's a point in time, probably midway, you know, I like to call it the intermission, you know, during the intermission time, to where, you know, it's a lot of downtime. The choir's, you know, throwing their vibes. Everybody's hallelujah. You know, we're all trying to praise God and everything like that. But at this same time, when everybody is, you know, in their highest form of praise, that offering basket is going around. Now, growing up, I grew up in church as well. I went to a Catholic church. Actually, ironically, I went to a Catholic school. And this is, you know, pretty much universal. Whenever you're going to a church, the offering basket is going around. Now, growing up, I wasn't really giving anything to the baskets. And she was actually telling me that when they were passing this offering basket around after the first round, they brought it back up and, brought it back up to the preacher. And he, goes to shake it like, this is a little bit light here, congregation. I don't know what we're doing. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to pass it around for a second time. And I think you guys need to remember how much the Lord has blessed you in this life, man. So whenever it comes to Lord blessing you in the life, you got to give your thanks and give your tithes. So we're going to try this again. And they go and send the offering basket. It goes up and down all the pews. And she had told me this was kind of a smaller church. Mind you, it's going up and down the pews and it's going to the same exact congregation that just took it, right? So what different result are we going to get? You know, and you guessed it. You guessed it. The same exact scenario happened as soon as it went to the second time. And the preacher goes, "All right, okay, now we're still not giving in the way we're supposed to, This is required of 10% in order for us to maintain everything. So we're gonna have to go ahead and do this a third time." And when she told me, I was like, "A third time?" And she's like, "Yes, a third time," which is crazy. Like I say, granted, at the end of the day, we all have a quota to meet. At the end of the day, we all have bills that we got to keep up with. But in my eyes, I don't really think one service is going to really make the biggest difference, man. But, I get it when you're really trying to count everything and take everything into accord to making sure that you're meeting everything that you need to. Are we really going to have to do this a third time? But you know what, bro? I'm going to go ahead and step back because it's not really my place to say. What was also funny is that it reminded me, like I said, growing up in that Catholic church, in the years that I went, which is from kindergarten all the way until I was about in the 6th grade. And when I first started going to this Catholic school, we had a different priest, father. I'm not going to name him. This father that we had whenever I was in elementary school, he was really big on making sure that we can maintain the relationship with the kids because you're over a Catholic school. So why are we not making sure that we're doing everything to keep the kids? Because if your job as a priest is to be over a Catholic school, your best way to make sure that you can maintain a relationship to continue to have people to come back is when you have somebody who has that welcoming spirit, which can help in the long run. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you got to plant that seed, not in that way. But sometimes you got to plant that seed and you got to water that seed a little bit in order for the plant to grow and remind others that it's like, hey, look at this great thing that I'm turning into, all because of the person who I'm around, all the person who helps all the altar kids and, just does all these great things for the kids. That way the kids can go home to the parents and the parents are like, oh my goodness, who would have ever thought that we would be able to be blessed with having something like this? So it kind of gives you that spark that you come Sunday service. Oh, let me go ahead and give in the basket. Let me do what I need to do. Now, like I said, this is the guy that was around when I was in elementary school. When I got to be about, I want to say maybe 3rd or 4th grade, that guy left and somebody else took his place. From what we were told and from what I remember, this guy was actually not the nicest priest that I remember. And I mean, I get it. A lot of it is just assignment based. You get placed somewhere because something happened, obviously, to where they had to switch it up. But like I said, I was in elementary school, so kind of completely unaware of what was going on. Now, this gentleman comes in and he's like, "Oh, we're going to switch everything up. Everything's going to be a little bit more snappy. We're going to make sure that we're doing everything to a T. We're doing everything on schedule. And we're making sure that all this stuff is happening whenever it's supposed to happen." Now, this guy was actually not the biggest fan of kids, which probably in the eyes of the church in the long run may have helped, because sometimes in a lot of those Catholic churches, there's a lot of nonsense that's going on outside, which I'm not really going to speak on because it's not my space to speak on. You feel me? But I say that to say that this guy was not just not super friendly with the kids, he was also not really friendly with the people of the congregation. And I mean, Catholic churches are typically a little bit smaller. It wasn't a small church, but it wasn't a gigantic facility. And I vividly remember this day on a Sunday morning service. We go through the whole shebang. We get the choir up there. They're doing their performance. Everything is going on. The offering basket goes up. And, he does his, I think they call it consecration when he's blessing the host and doing everything. For those of you that know, you know what I'm talking about. And it comes time for him to give his sermon. So he goes through his whole sermon. He was like, he was cool. He would, crack a couple jokes here and there just to kind of keep you engaged in the sermon to make sure that everything was received in the way that he was trying to make sure you understood the message. I could not tell you what the message was that day, but the one message that I do remember receiving is at the tail end of that service. He got to talking about acts of service and, making sure that we're paying our community back and everything of that sort. And in that same breath, before he walks off stage, he goes, I want to bring something to everybody's attention here that attends this service. So everybody receives a bulletin whenever you're walking in the doors. If everybody wants to go ahead and pull out that bulletin, I'm going to give everybody a moment to take a chance to grab the bulletin for yourselves. So the reason why I bring up this bulletin is because if you guys pay attention to the very back, at the bottom on the back page of this bulletin, there is a monthly budget that we are required to meet. Why do I bring this budget up? Because with the amount of offerings that we are getting, we are nowhere near to touching this goal that we're supposed to be having every month. So what I am saying is that with that goal in mind, you need to be taking that into consideration whenever this offering plate is going around. Okay? Okay. And he steps down and he goes back on to complete the service like he didn't just say that. And I remember like being a kid like, what? Because it's like, like I say, I understand. We have quotas. We have a monthly budget that we're supposed to be getting to, right? But there's like so many other ways that when you're delivering a message that you can deliver it on another occasion or a different way, But I don't know, man. I was also a kid, so I really didn't have like much of opinion, nor did I really know what could even have been said with something like that or how you could really even respond. But I just remember like looking at everybody in the church and everybody's just kind of just, oh, okay. Okay. Well, I guess we got to step our game up. I guess we got to do this. And everybody's like, okay, let's just make sure that we're getting right. But like me as a kid, I'm just thinking like, I don't really think that's the way you're supposed to be sending this message off to everybody. But like I say, I was a kid, man. So what do I really know, right? Anyways, man, moving on from that, bro. It's kind of funny just like thinking about like a lot of the stuff that's happening in life whenever, like I say, that monthly budget that we're trying to make sure that we maintain. There was a story that I actually saw probably about a month or so ago that was reported on The Breakfast Club. Shout out to Charlemagne the God, right? So this story that you asked, this is a story that actually happened out in the great grand old state of Florida. So anytime you hear Florida, you already know it's some wild shit that's about to go down, right? So we're going to go ahead and just read this headline so that way you guys can stick with me and understand where the fuck I'm going with this. What's the title of this headline, you ask? This is called Teen Choked Over Dipping Sauce. Like I say, good old Florida, right? So this says, a teenage customer was choked by a McDonald's worker after the girl walked behind the counter to take some ranch dipping sauce after not being helped by employees, according to Florida police. The 17-year-old was returning to the McDonald's lobby when Akina Sampson grabbed her arm, cops reported. When the teen tried to break free, Sampson allegedly grabbed her neck and took the girl to the ground. Now, Florida, right? I don't know what the fuck they got in the water out there, bro. That's just the shit that I really don't understand. Like, like I say, man, the main point that I'm pushing is that I understand when it comes to a job, you do what you got to do to maintain your position so that way you can continue to contribute to your monthly budget and everything that you got to get taken care of. But also, I feel like as a McDonald's worker, that little dipping sauce was not going to make a dent in your pay if you were to offer that shit up. Of course, we all got rules and regulations, and with the dipping sauce, they want to charge you that $1.25 or whatever it is now with inflation and shit like that. Shout out to them tariffs, right? But it's just like something to where I'm like, bro, it is never that serious, bro. A job is never that serious to where you really have to go the lengths of choking a kid out. Like, listen, saying no one time is good enough. If they don't listen the second time, it's not my role. This little dipping sauce that somebody's gonna take is not affecting my job if I allow somebody to take it. Granted, she was a little bit older, so she probably felt obligated to push her authority, so to say, on somebody like that. But it's never that serious to me, man. But like I say, this is the good old state of Florida. The Floridians. Shout out T Pain and shout out Flo Rida, right? Shout out Kodak Black. Like these are just some names that it's just like, huh, okay. A lot of these things are starting to add up, and if you start to kind of put some stuff into the equation, and like I say, I can go down the list of all the people from Florida that we know, whether it's in pop culture, whether they make music or just big names or whatever the case it is, but it is never that serious at the end of the day, bro. Like when I heard this story, of course, shout out to Charlemagne the God. He told this story in the category which he calls Donkey of the Day. And as soon as I saw this title on the Donkey of the Day, I was like, what? But he also has that thing where he says the craziest people come from the Bronx and all of Florida. And that story alone will just let you know how crazy people are in Florida. Shout out to Florida, right? What's kind of funny, even like thinking about Florida, is we have somebody on the complete opposite side of the spectrum, such as, Rod Wave, where he gives a lot of pain music. And to think that all the kind of stuff that he's talking about in his music is like personal to him, whether it's dealing with relationships, friendships, or whatever the case. But also, we also just have the story that got released that he was allegedly trying to sit on his baby mama when she was trying to kick him out of the house. So it's just like, Florida, bro. What the fuck do they do out there in Florida to make these people go so wild, bro? Like, I get it. You deal with alligators, you deal with crocodiles, you're out there like on the other end of the Gulf of Mexico now. Bro, this just I can't believe that they really changed that shit to the Gulf of America, man. Shout out to that orange motherfucker, man. But I don't know, man. That's something about just Florida that I just don't understand. But I want to visit. Don't get me wrong. I do want to visit there. So maybe one of these days, once I have my frontal lobe in place the way that it's supposed to, or I just, probably take a lot of sage on the plane to make sure that I wear it as a necklace. Fuck around and keep an evil eye in my backpack or something like that, bro. I just got to do whatever I can if I ever step in the state of Florida to make sure that I don't have any of that Floridian attitude like rub off onto me just for spending a little bit of time. Because if you've ever encountered anybody who has taken a trip to Florida, there's one of two people that take a trip to Florida. Either they say they are never stepping foot in that state ever again, or they always want to go back. So like I say, man, what the fuck is in that Florida water, man? What in the world possibly just makes you just turn out to be all these kind of people? Like I say, such as, Kodak Black. We got Rod Wave, and then we got this lady who choked out a person over some ranch dipping sauce. That McDonald's ranch dipping sauce is not that good. But I digress, bro. I digress, man. I'm just gonna leave that shit alone because you just never know what people are going through at the end of the day, man. That's where I try my best to like give people grace in a lot of these scenarios because I understand that we all have stuff that we're dealing with at the end of the day. But also at the end of the day, your job is not that serious for you to go the lengths of choking a kid out. But that's just me, though. That's just me. And what's also funny, just thinking about just jobs and the type of stuff that you put up with a job too, is I have a friend of mine who I actually went to high school and middle school with. And he ironically also ended up moving out here to Oklahoma as well. He on the married wave. Shout out to my boy Zeandre. He moved out here, he got married and everything of that sort, and he started doing a lot of big things. And him and I stayed connected because we got to talking about all of our like Uber chronicles and stuff like that. shout out to him because he's actually top 25% out in the Dallas Fort Worth area. So shout out to my guy. Like he kind of turned up a little bit of a competition in me because I was like, wait a minute, what you mean you're the top 25 in a metropolitan? I was out here one of nine drivers and I still wasn't top 25%. But you know what, bro? I'm not gonna take that shit to heart because I cut that shit out for a reason. Now, reason why I bring him up specifically is because he actually fed me a funny story the other day. So he told me about how basically what he does is he has a later shift. So he gets off at about midnight. And from midnight to, I think he said like 5 in the morning, he's out driving Uber and Lyft, man. Shout out to Ashwagandha because he's over there, popping them ashwagandha and Shijulit pills. And he's over there running like a tank, man. So he told me that he was out on a Friday night, out in the good old Tulsa area, man. And he picked up these two younger ladies. And he said that when they were standing outside, there was also a gentleman standing with them. And all three of them collectively get into the car. And, just to kind of, give you guys a little bit of background, you guessed it. They were all white. So they get in the car and it's all, oh hey, how are you doing? Oh, I'm doing pretty good. And the guy that gets in, also a white guy, and he said he got in the car immediately. He was like, oh hey, how are you doing today, brother? He just kind of looked at him like, oh, okay, it's gonna be one of those kind of rides. Okay. And he's like, man, I'm doing pretty good, man. How are you doing today, man? He's like, dude, I'm doing good, man. He's like, you got good vibes, man. You playing music and everything, man. You know what? You know what you should be playing? I think you should go ahead and play some Lil Baby. And my friend Ziandra, he looks at him like, nah, man, I don't want to play Lil Baby, bro. And the guy was like, what do you mean you don't want to play? Like, just play it. He's just like, it's kind of just brushed it off. So he's driving down the road and he said it was about like a 15-20 minute ride. And he said that the guy was kind of just like catting off or whatever. And he noticed that the girls were extremely uncomfortable with the way how he was talking and the way that he was just interacting, and his whole energy was just off. And he said that he looks at him and she was like, listen, like, we don't even know who this guy is. So it'd probably be best for you to go ahead and get him out of your car. And he's like, oh, haha, okay, whatever. It was Friday night. So we're all thinking like, oh, you got these drinks in your system, whatever the case. And he just kind of laughs it off. It's like, oh, okay, cool. And the ladies are like, no, like, we're serious. We don't know who this guy is. So you might want to let this guy out of your car. And he was just like, okay. So him thinking on his toes and stuff like that, he's just like striking up a little bit of a conversation and stuff like that, like trying to get the guy comfortable because he's like, I gotta think with my right side of my brain with this one, man. Like I say, he got that ashwagandha in his system, making sure he's nice and alert. And he said that he basically just started talking up the guy and was like, oh, X, Y, and Z, what's up with this? Are you from here? Just trying to get him all nice and comfortable. And he says, I get off of the highway and I pull over to this random gas station. He was like, hey, bro, uh, I'm gonna need you to go ahead and get out of the car. And he was like, get out of the car? What do you mean? He was like, well, they're saying that they don't know you. And if they don't know you, I don't really want you to be in my car because that doesn't make any of us comfortable in here. And he said that the guy like flipped. He was like, are you kidding me, bro? You're really about to listen to these bitches and just allow these bitches to skew your mind to make you drop me off when you don't even know anything about me? And my guy was like super level headed and he was just like, nah, man, like it's not even like that. Like they told me this and they told me that. And the guy cuts him off and he was like, nah, fuck that, man. You're really about to choose these bitches over me, bro? Like, we're both men. We're supposed to be in this together, bro. We're not supposed to listen to these bitches. So what are we talking about here? And I'm like listening to this story like, dang, like it was like that. And he was like, wait, it gets better. So he's like, from there, he gets more livid about him, like being adamant about like, no, you have to get out of my car, guy. And he was like, oh, so you want me to get out of your car? Yeah, I'll get out of your car. How about we get out of the car and we just fight? How about that? I'll beat your fucking ass. How about that? And he was like, oh, okay, cool. He was like, oh, so you want to fight? Oh, yeah. So let's go ahead and fight. And he told me, he was like, so I got hyped up. He was like, so yeah, we could do that. We could do that then. Come on, bro. Let's get up. Let's get out. And he was like, all right, all right. He said the dude hopped out of the car and he slammed the car door shut. And he says, as he slammed the car door shut, he starts to walk around the car to get to the driver's side. He said, man, I slammed that car in the drive and I just he was like, I pulled off and I did the dash. I got up and dodged, dude. Bro, I was crying when he told me this because I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, bro, that shit had me like so, like, I was joked out like crazy because I was so level headed. I was like maintaining my peace and everything like that. Then when he started to, hike up the energy talking about, yeah, bro, let's fight then. I'll beat your ass then. He was like, I just was like, yeah, fuck it then. Let's do what we got to do, man. I'm ready for it. I'm ready for whatever. He said the guy got out of the car. Dude, I was crying because I was like, bro, you are such a better person than me. Like being able to be that level headed and to not allow like little small little things to just get to you. But also at the same time, we don't know who any of these people are. So we don't know what they have or what they're capable of. But shout out to my guy DeAndre because it's like if it wasn't for that ashwagandha and that shijalitz or whatever he called that, I promise you he would have not been able to been in his right side of his mind to not hop out of the car with him. But maybe I'm just a crash out. Maybe that's what it is. Because when he got to telling me this story, I was like, you know what, man? Maybe I'm just a little crash. Maybe I'm just a little crash out because, man, I would have hopped out of the car and been like, my pride is being tested right now. But, like they say, pride is the devil. But also, at the end of the day, what this is coming down to is this making sure you can continue to contribute to your monthly budget, bro. It was just like an amazing thing from me. But also at the same time, I'm really big on hearing other people's sides of the story as far as like, damn, that's what that sounds like. Because you never know how you're acting or how you're responding with others until others are telling you what it is for you. So shout out to my guy, man. That guy has done some great things, bro. And I want to give him his kudos while I can, not to glaze him or nothing like that, because I know you listening. So shout out to you, bro. But for real, man, like that was something to where I could really like appreciate hearing somebody who's able to maintain their solidarity or just wherever that you're looking for to stay on this like level playing field with yourself, knowing what you have. But I think also at the same time, like knowing that you got to contribute to the monthly budget, you're going to try to play your role and play your character just to get somebody to get out of the car. So I can appreciate some tactics like that, man. He's probably playing some amazing chess at the house by himself with that chess simulator, but shout out to you, guy. Shout out to you for real, man. So, today was just a little bit of a quick one, man. Things have been going pretty good. As you can see, shit looks pretty fucking amazing in here, my guy. Look at this, man. Shoot, things are going great, bro. I got a lot of good things in store. I got some guests that are coming on the podcast. So shout out to everybody who has been fucking with me all this time. And also with me saying to all the people who have been fucking with me all this time, bro, I actually now have opened up an email. And this email specifically is for anybody who has a story that they want to share. And I'm not just saying that you got to just share Uber passenger, Uber driver stories. I want to hear any kind of story that you have. So I'm going to go ahead and run this to you really quick. With this email, like my ats, itymd.podcast@gmail.com. If you have a story to share, I don't give a damn if it's talking about Uber, you were riding the bus, you're riding the train, or you just got into it with your mom's baby mama. Well, mom's baby daddy. Like, I don't give a damn what the story is, bro. If you got a story to share, I got an email ready to accept all submissions, bro. So like I said, itymd.podcast@gmail.com. If you have any stories to share, my submission inbox is free to share, bro. So, like I say, man, I'm going to go ahead and sign this one out here. But before I get out, I always like to, give you guys my conclusion for this. So, the whole story of today has been centered around contributing to your monthly budget. But what you also have to make sure that you are maintaining is whenever you are contributing to your monthly budget, that you're not stepping out of your morals just because you want to maintain a job. Because if you think about it, it takes 1 second to make a bad decision. And that 1 second that you accept this bad decision can really cause turmoil in the long run of your future, bro. So don't allow your monthly budget that you're trying to continue to contribute allow you to fuck up your future, bro. So yeah, man. On that aspect, like I say, as always, if you are not following me, that is at itymd.podcast. That's on Instagram. That's on TikTok. That's on YouTube. That's on Apple Music, Spotify, and everywhere else that you can listen to podcasts at, man. So I'm signing out on this one. Ricky Montoya, aka the
Going
coolest
too
of all
fast,
best,
150
man.
on a dash,